Hello and welcome to Code Panthers. This is your host Fardeen Khan and you're watching another video about the Firebase tutorial series. So in the last video we discussed about all the various products and services that Firebase is providing, and that was an overview, but now we are going to look into the actual console view, how that service is actually implemented and how we can actually make use of it in our applications. So first of all, we need to head over to the Firebase website, that is firebase.google.com. And on the top right corner you can see the option go to console. Clicking on that or either entering the URL console.firebase.google.com, we will be led to the Firebase console. Now here will be listed all the projects that you have already created or are using, or you can create a new project. And on the bottom corner you can see that there is an option for exploring a demo project. So right now if you create a new project, all the services will not be populated, and so you won't be able to get an idea of how Firebase looks for an actual running project in real time. So for that we will be exploring the demo project. Not all the services and products in the demo project will be open to us because we won't be the actual owner of that project, right? So let us open this one. So you can see this is the project overview. The name of the Firebase project is Firebase Demo Project. It is following the Blaze plan, which is a paid plan, but since we can't look into it, we can't modify it, we will see it later on. There are two applications that are using this project, sharing its resources, that is Android and iOS application. The name are same, Flooded. And the project overview has a number of cards, for example, for analytics, Crashlytics, performance, hosting, storage, messaging, A/B testing, etc. These are the services that we are actively using, and it is collecting information as well. So we have already talked about all of these, analytics, Crashlytics, etc. as an overview, but now let us check out actually what it is doing. So as the name analytics suggests, it is collecting some metric data about, for example, daily active users, day one retention, revenue that we are collecting over the applications. The orange color is representing the iOS application, the purple one for Android, and the blue one is for the accumulated average. So you can see some dotted lines as well. So dotted lines represent the previous period, that is January 6 to January 12 for the dotted lines, and January 12 to January 18 for the current period, that is the solid lines. So you can see the Android app is having a bit more daily active user as compared to the iOS, which is remaining consistent over the period, but then at the end it is finally switching over where iOS is taking over more daily active user. On the day one retention, what do we mean by day one retention is that how many users are actually using the application after installing it on the first day. So for example, I'm installing Instagram as a new user, but on the very second day I am either stopping using it or I am uninstalling it. Then I will drop the day one retention ratio. But if I'm continue using it, then this percentage will increase. So we can see that the iOS has a great improvement when it comes to day one retention, almost 41% jump. Finally, we have the revenue. This can be collected over a lot of things, purchases, ad or videos being shown. So a lot of things will be leading to revenue generation, and this is shown here. Next, we are moving on to Crashlytics. Now, of course, crashes do degrade your user experience, right? If an app is continuously crashing, nobody will like to use it. So we should have users having a crash-free experience. So for that we are also using Crashlytics, which is actually tracking all the crashes that are happening across the devices and giving you a graph of how many of these users were actually going through a crash-free experience. Now you can see that here there is a dip that went down to 98.3%, which is a bad thing because that is quite a lot of users. If you are talking about millions or billions of users of your application, then this kind of a drop will actually have a lot of people being affected. So the best case scenario should be around 99.8 or 99.9% crash free users, but that is not the case here. So this requires some intervention from the developer to look into the logs and check out actually what is causing the issue. Now we are looking at the performance tab. So only some performance issues top issues have been generated for the iOS app. So this is related to a slow app start. That is, the app is taking a bit more time than it should be for opening up the app, and it might look slow to the user. So that is a performance issue. Now moving on to hosting. So we are also using a website that has been hosted by the Firebase hosting service, and we can see that how many users have accessed it and what is the download rate of the website. So basically whenever you are accessing a website, it is actually downloading over some resources of the website, and this is the graph for it. It also shows that how many users are actually using the website, but this is not some real analytics. We are not actually embedding Firebase into this website, and that is why it is not showing up in the analytics as well. It is only showing up in hosting. If we have a website that we are hosting on Firebase as well as we are using it in Firebase services, then we will have some more insights, but that is not the case yet. Then we have a storage, that is how much storage we are using. We get 10 GB free, but in Blaze plan there are some differences. Next, moving on to cloud messaging. So basically this is related to sending over messages or push notifications to the user and checking whether they are actually opening it or not. And we can also have some kind of intention set behind it. For example, if the user is opening it, then are they actually going to the page that we intend them to? For example, if this is a notification about a new sales page, that a new promotion has been going on, clicking on the notification should lead them to the sales page. Now, whether they are actually buying something or not is the actual conversion ratio. Sorry. So this was about messaging and the open ratio, the conversion ratio, etc. Now again, there are some experimental tests going on. We can see them here, whether they are successful or not. So this was only the project overview. Looking on your the left hand panel, you can see that we have a lot of tabs here: build, release and monitor, analytics and engage. So these are basically the categories that we had talked about in the previous video. So we will explore them one by one. So let us start with the build category, which is all the tools that are required for making our application development an easy process by providing backend services that we do not have to manage. So first of all is authentication. So if we have any users that are actually logged in into the UI in the application, they will show here. But as it seems that this application doesn't need authentication for the user to use it, so we are not seeing any user here. If you have not set up any sign-in method, then you can either click here or go to this method. So these are all the service providers, authentication credential provider, or we can say the ways that we can actually validate a user. You can sign in with your Apple account, Microsoft, Yahoo, GitHub, Twitter, Facebook. For games, we have Game Center or Play Games or the generic Google sign in. Or we can also send out OTPs for the user to sign in or use the general email password sign in. Also, there is an option for anonymous sign in. For example, there will be a user ID that will be generated for each of the user that is signed in to our application. But if you are choosing to anonymously sign in, that you do not want to have any information related to yourself in this application for the duration that you are using it, then a temporary user ID will be generated to you, which may be refreshed each time you are actually using this option, signing it anonymously. So then also we can manage whether one email address can have more than one account. So basically on different devices and different installed apps, we can have the same email address, create a different account each time. That is also possible. Now moving on to templates. So basically whenever we are using authentication systems, we should also want to validate them again using their email address verification, or sometimes we want to reset a password. In that case, we have to send out emails. And this is the template of the SMTP server, which will be sending out these emails. So this is the email ID from which we will be sending them. Some other important parts of the email: subject, messages, etc. These are all parameters that can be populated. Display name will be the name of the person we are sending the email to. App name will be our app name. Okay. So this was for password reset, email address change. And if we have our own custom SMTP server, our own mail server, then we can replace all this by using our own SMTP server. Finally, this is about the OTP verification. For OTP verification, we are sending an SMS over to the user. So this will be the format of the message they will receive. The login code will be the actual OTP. Okay, and finally we have usage. So sending out emails is relatively free, but OTP is billed. So for example, if you are living in US, Canada or India, you will get 10,000 OTP requests per billing cycle, that is per month. And for all other countries, these are clubbed together into a separate 10,000 limit. So if you exceed that, you won't be able to receive any more OTPs, or you will have to start a billing cycle. That is, you have to go with the paid plan. So this was about authentication. Now other services, for example, Cloud Firestore, which are the database, etc., are not accessible because we are not a part of this demo project, so we won't be able to access it. So we will look through them in our actual project that we will be creating for ourselves. Okay, so this is the hosting database, the hosting service. You can see that this is the name of the website. Let us try to open it. Okay, so flood it. So this is basically a landing page which will direct you to the app install for App Store or Google Play Store. So this is a simple website that they have deployed. We can see that there are some different URLs for the same website, firebaseapp.com or web app, etc. Okay, and this is one of the redirect. This is the actual I see they have not installed the SSL certificates, that is why. Otherwise this domain will actually lead them to this website only. So there are some redirects set up, there are some and yeah, it needs some setup. Okay, so then there are deployment histories. So for example, we are updating the code, then this is the previous versions, the number of files that we had, etc. Okay, I think this is all about hosting. I don't think we'll be able to access functions. Yes, machine learning, I guess the same thing. So let us move on to release and monitor. On the Crashlytics platform, you will get all the information related to all the kind of issues that the user are facing. Right now, we are filtering with the event type crashes. So we are seeing how many crashes actually occurred through all the devices, through all the users in this period of time. So you can see that 98.33% was noticed on January 17, which is a very bad metric, which will be affecting a lot of users. There are some events also. So since we are talking about crashes, then these are the users impacted. How many actual crashes happened over time? 77 for, so on January 7, I think, no, on January 16, that was the most, 77 crashes. Then there are some issues. So for example, we have already generated some logs from the crashes, the version of the app that we're using, and this is the particular line of code as well that is given to us. So you see, this is such a detailed process. Like since we are using Java or let's say Dart in our application development, so it will be generating some exceptions which we have to catch. If they are not caught, then the logs will be generated for them, and we will get to know that exactly where this issue is happening, which is affecting 25 users 375 times. So this is the culprit here. This line of code is doing this, and we can directly go and change it. So these are some issues that are open. So if I solve this, and then I think there will be no such issues again, and it will be moved over to the closer muted state. Then also we are getting the options for filtering it throughout the data. For example, it might be an issue specifically related to a particular device. So for example, or it can be that they are just using this application more on these kind of devices. But whatever be the case, we can get the option to select over them, and also which Android operating system they are using on. You can see that we don't see the option of 9 or 10 or 11 here. This is because most of our users are from these only devices, and only they are facing this issue. Okay, so that was just one kind of event. We have other kind of events such as non-fatals or crashes. So crashes are basically when you can't use your application anymore, it will just close it down itself. Or we can have some non-fatals. Now non-fatals are that they won't close your application, but they are caught by the system. You can see that there are no such issues here. Okay, moving on to the iOS application. So we actually had a drop down, and all that data we saw was for Android. Now this is for iOS. Now you can see that iOS application is facing relatively less number of issues here. Again, we get to see that there are only 63 events, but they are occurring over this particular line of code. So we can directly do that. Okay. Now moving on to the performance tab. Again, we are having it for the iOS and the Android. I see the Android app is a bit more crash prone, so we will look into that. Okay, so there are a lot of metrics that we can collect over here. So 50% median. Okay. So for app startup time is 6% faster compared to the previous 7 days. Now this may not be related to any code changes. Maybe this is about the user having a clearer system. For example, they have cleared some data, etc. If we look into the detail, then there are a lot of graphs, there are a lot of options based on the app versions, countries they are referring to. All these metrics are being collected. How much duration of time are they using it or facing some issues, etc. This is so much in detail that you can spend your entire day on these particular events. So the app startup time, we can add more metrics, for example network request status. Let us see what we can add over here. So you can see that how much time it is taking for each of the screens to render, and let us say that we are looking for game finished flooded activity, let us say, yeah, that, and what we need is slow rendering to be shown. So slow rendering has reduced almost 12% over the time, so our activity, that is flooded activity, is running a bit smoother as compared to previous duration. Okay, so that is the way we can actually generate these metrics. Some other events that are captured by the app itself. So app in foreground, how much time it is staying there. Starting, it is taking 460 millisecond as a median. If it is in background, how much time it is taking. So all these metrics are generated on rendering, on slow frames, on the performance perspective. So out of the 500,000 samples collected, 45.457 were actually facing rendering issues, and these are frozen frames. Now frozen frames are basically whenever we are not rendering at 60 fps, then it is frozen frame, it is actually being stuck there. So all these activities are being covered, and there they are. We can apply some filters, for example which API version we are talking about, device, OS level, etc. Now moving on to network. So basically if you are making any network request and over the internet, and if you are getting a good response over that or not, this is basically when you are calling an API. But right now in this scenario we are not making any API call, I see in the application. Only the data that has been sent over to the Crashlytics has been registered here. So we are actually sending data to the Crashlytics server. So no issues have been open. What about closed? No issues. Okay. Moving on to the test lab. Just a minute, I'll be back. Okay, so previously discussed as test lab. So we previously discussed about test lab as being a farm of devices where we can actually run our application on emulated virtual machines or a physical device and see whether our app is actually running great or not. So I think there are some kind of tests. For example, let me select flooded. So it will be running over total 8 devices, and there are some issues that we have faced. There are some kind of test, instrumentation test, unit test. This is a robo test, I don't know what that is. So we are saying that how many devices crashed with that, how many devices failed, or they were not working properly on these devices, and we can look into the detail about what exactly happened and for which device this issue was generated. Okay, so these are all the tests. Nexus 6P. So this is the name of the device. It is virtual and it is using the Android API level 25. It was in the orientation, that is landscape, portrait, and it was using the English language. So let us see what kind of issue we faced here. So this was an instrumentation test. We will talk about testing maybe some later time. And this is the exception that was generated, a runtime exception. Okay. So this is a test crash on APIs that is greater than 21. Attempt to read from a field that was null. So we are trying to fetch a value that is not actually populated. So this kind of issues can be actually generated, can be caught in time if we are testing using the test lab. I do not have the permission to load the information that is stored in the Google Cloud because I do not own this system. Okay, if this was happening on my account, I would have been able to show you. Okay, so this was about test lab, where you can create a number of devices, provision them for running a particular kind of test, and it will run and give you the information of which error led to a crash or a known fatal device issue. Okay, now moving on to app distribution. So as the name suggests, it is about distributing your application to the different different app stores. We do not have access for it, unfortunately. Moving over to analytics. The most important part of an application for it to increase its engagement and make changes based on what we are actually seeing in the user experience. So a lot of information is covered. If your application is using having more than 1 million users, then it is very important for you to look to even small changes in the data. For example, a drop in the percentage of active users, etc., is very important for you. So basically in analytics, we are setting up a particular number of events. For example, when a particular screen is opened, when they are clicking on a particular button, they are completing an event. For example, in a game, they are completing 5 levels, 10 levels, or they have completed game over. So these are all the events that we are interested about collecting information of. So first of all, as you can see, we are looking at active users. So this is about day 1 day, 7 day, and 28 day. We are looking at the previous period as well for all those things. Okay, so for each one of them we have some previous information. So there is an increase here over this period of time. This is the total accumulation of 28 days. Users per minute. Okay, 25 minutes ago there were 3 users, active users, 8 users, and these are all the events. Session start, level complete, first open. It is not automatically created. We have created these events in our code. For example, whenever the user will click on the button, other than executing the logic that is clicking on the button, we are also generating this event. Okay, then how often are users converting? Now when converting, I see that a particular flow has to be executed by the user for an event to click off. For example, we are talking about a conversion that is level complete. So the user is opening up, let us say, the application, and then actually playing a level and completing it. So that is a conversion. If the user is only opening the app and not completing the level, then that is not a conversion. So for example, also we are showing some information about updating the app, but the user is not concerned about it, then that will be a drop in the update. And also this is about another event, complete 5 levels. If the user is completing them, then that is you can say conversion. Okay, so we can see that 668. So quite a large number of conversions for level complete. Not all are going for 5 complete levels. So daily engagement. Okay, class or page, we can even look into these things: events, game over, game board, activity. Okay, so how many users are actually using it on daily basis? How much revenue was generated? So you can see for this period of time we had $53 generated, ad revenue mostly. Our purchase we had $6.09. We can set up different currencies also for that. Crash free users again. App version adoption. So these are the latest versions on iOS which are successfully adopted, but the Android ones need some setup, or maybe I think investigation regarding that. Okay, 85.62 active users and 98.79. So from the 100% active users, we are only getting 85.62 which have actually passed over to the latest version. Okay, so this is not good, right? This is not looking good. If you are looking only to 85.62% of our millions of users, then there is a large number of people who have not upgraded. On previous release, oh, this was even bad. No, this is basically how many people are actually left over in the previous release. So 14.04% people are still using the previous release, and they are actually engaging that application more, and they don't even have any crashes. So this is a bad thing for the new release. Okay, so this was about releasing the various versions and looking out over the data for that. Also, we can check out a different period of time. We are looking at last 28 days. We can increase it to the lifetime as well, but we are basically looking for the latest data only. Downloading it into a CSV is also possible. Okay, so this is about your audience. We can see that most of the users are from United States and India. This is basically about the various information, demographic, location wise, then device wise. So most of them are from other devices, not on iOS, or mostly a specific Android device. Then we have OS version, again dominated by other Android versions, but the majority of them are using Android 10. Demographic include the gender, the age group, etc. And we have interests. So I don't know how this information is collected, but I guess most of them are using this application because they want some entertainment. Retention cohorts. So if we had users in December 6 and 12, how many of these users are actually existing through the week 5, through a month? So this is how the user retention goes. Okay, now comparison between the OS. So there some are using the web, some are using the Android, some are using iOS. so user retention and the distribution over the platform. So a lot of information is collected. We can add all these filters, names, audience names, okay, user properties, which OS version they are going with, etc. and etc. So many details to be collected here. Now the events that we were talking about, there are actually this is the list of the existing event that we have created. So for example, if the user is clicking on an ad, it is getting a reward, is clearing the app data, is the app is generated some exceptions. All these events are defined by us and these are collected over here, and we are seeing that on during this period of time whether we are getting an increase in that impression count or not. Okay, so some events will be automatically created by these the Firebase, because since we are using a game as an application, so they are recommending these things to be automatically generated. Okay, moving over to conversions. So as I talked about, right, conversion is basically what we are looking for because that is something that will be beneficial to the app. So for example, how many people actually went to the shopping page and added something to the cart? How many people added some elements to wish list? How many people actually updated the app after receiving a notification to update it? How many people completed 5 levels? How many people actually opened the app for the first time? So these are basically conversions that we are looking for. If they purchase some things, they started the sessions. Some are mixed. We can mix them with events actually, because these are actually events only. But we are looking for conversions in the sense that there should be a sequence of things that led to this thing or not. So for example, I'm getting a notification. Using that notification, I'm actually opening a sales page, and in that sales page, if I'm making a purchase, then make purchase event should fire up. For example, in-app purchase. Okay. Now let us go over to the audience. So we have again defined the users: expert users who have beaten all progressive levels, crashing users, level beaters version 2, version 1. So these are all the category of users that we have defined based on the events, based on the conversions, and now we are tracking again information about them. So crashing users are mostly from United States. We can see 76.7%, and most of them are female users. So this is some kind of a concern. Maybe it will give you insights as to what is actually causing the issues. Okay, so that was all about audiences. Now moving on to funnels. Now we are actually using funnels in the sense analyzing the analytical data and dividing it into actual useful information. So extra step compulsion. What was the description for it? Wait. Extra steps usage rate per level, progressive gameplay funnel. Let us see this. So these are actually looking for first open event, level start and level complete. Okay, so 10,000 users opened our application. They started the level, they were 4,400, and when they completed the level, they were actually 2,940. So this is kind of like a funnel, kind of like a step graph. These many people opened the application for the first time, and out of that, these many people actually were converting, were opening the conversion of level start, and finally out of those 66.0% actually completed the level and generated the conversion of level complete. So it is more like steps that are followed, and what is the drop or increase in the this will be basically a drop in how many people actually moved over to the next conversion. Same goes for this one. Event count. Okay, moving over to user properties. So this is basically something we have set up. Ad frequency, these are user, we can change the values here. These are used in different other services, not to be discussed much. So app release, so whether it was successful or needs investigation. We saw the app release from the analytics dashboard, and we saw that not many of the users are actually on this. The same can be seen here, but for some reason it is saying that it is successful. Let us check it out. 77.52% of the people are on actively using this version, while okay, so you can see that the previous release use case or the active users is low. So if that would be higher, then this wouldn't be considered a successful release. Okay. Now going on to retention. Retention is very important for any application, because people who are using it should continue using it, or else there will be a loss. So we are seeing that on December 6, all these duration of time, we had 100% users. We are considering that as 100% users. And then, for example, on 16 on the week 0, we are seeing these many users. Then they are dropping to this many users. Out of them, more are dropping. 6% remain from the 100%. Finally, on the last week, there are only 4.3%. So this is the information we are collecting over it. Again, we can apply all these filters and all. Stream view. So this will be real-time information that we are collecting from the users. So you can see this is a demographic view, or we can say location-based view, how many users we are seeing everywhere. So this is United States divided into various states. Again, we can see particular hotspots where we are actually seeing our users generating events using the application. I am very surprised that this is the level of information that they are collecting, like in the Burbank, Thousand Oaks, people are there. Top user property value, number of levels completed or something. Top app version, user snapshot. Okay, let us see this a random thing. So what is this? Okay, somebody has started the application usage, and in that we can see that what is all going on. This is in Dhaka, Bangladesh. 2.64 app version, and this is for a user snapshot. So in the last 30 minutes, he had generated these events, and these are the properties that are being active. So something like this, you can check between different users. So this is from South Africa, not using his application right now. So something like that. More we can see in stream view, I suppose. More information, for example, timeline details, how many users are active throughout the time, how many users are actually active right now. A lot of things are happening here. In Japan, we also have these users. Top location wise, so many information to be seen here, right? Finally, moving on to the engage part. So let me stop here, I will take a break. Okay, so now moving on to the final tab, that is engage. So in the previous video, we talked about engage being the set of products that allows you to increase the engagement and the time the user is spending, the activities it is the user is conducting on our application, so as to improve some kind of factor, for example, the revenue or the daily user count. So predictions are calibrated on the activity of your 1 day active user. So okay, so these are based on the day 1 or 1 day active users. Now what we are talking about is setting up some goals. For example, we want to increase the people who are triggering the complete 5 levels, the conversion or the event, or those are triggering the in-app purchase event or churn event. So what we are doing here is based on the analytical data, we are running some machine learning algorithms in the backend, which we are not in control of, so that this algorithm will tell us exactly what kind of user base or what kind of promotion campaign we should lead, that will in turn help in triggering these events. So for example, if you want to make more money, then what kind of people are more likely to spend money in the application based on their current activity, we should only target them as well, right? Or introduce some kind of discount to those who might turn out to start paying this. So these all things can be performed here, but as you can see, some information or some data has to be collected regarding these events, otherwise we may not be able to get some meaningful information. So I don't think we can do much here. We will have to go to a BigQuery or look about it right there, and since we do not have any access, we will move on. So A/B testing, as we talked about in the previous video, again it is about partially delivering new or experimental features to a part of a user base and then seeing their feedback as to whether this will be beneficial or not. So for example, these are 3 of the running A/B testing operations that I can see. All of them are using remote config, and there are variants, a few of the variants of them. Let us see the one that is actually successful or is generating positive outcome. Okay, so mostly remote config is used when using these all things, because it will help improve the deliverance of variety of the experimental features that we want to deliver. So for example, these are the experiment results, right? And these are the events. So we have a star event that is basically our primary goal, which we are targeting. So we are thinking of increasing the triggering of these events by making some changes in the variants. So for example, variant A may have some code or may have some user interaction that will lead to increase in the triggering of this event. We have a secondary goal as well, but we are not talking about that. And some other option that you have for doing the same has been put in variant B. Now you can see that we are dividing it into 1000 users almost, and we are checking whether they are actually triggering this event or not. So we can see that variant A is more successful with a clear improvement, while on the other hand variant B is dropping down with a success rate that is in between -2% to -9.2% or 3.7. So it is very clear or obvious to us over a period of time that variant A is the one that we should move forward with. So instead of making an experimental feature, we can actually convert it into an app feature. You see conversion rate, we can see 711 events have been fired here. Okay, so all these things are basically about releasing out features that are only limited in that are experimental in nature, and we only want to give them to particular set of users to test it first. Okay, now talking about dynamic link. So when we create a dynamic link, it is basically for, again, analytical purpose. We want to know how many people are actually inviting a friend using this URL that we have generated. And this might be an invite URL. It might be that per user we are generating this link, or we can have a solid link that is shared by all the people who are trying to invite a friend. So for example, this URL is basically focused on inviting a friend to the platform. If they are not on the platform, then we will give them a link to the App Store, the website, or the Google Play stores for them to first download the app. Okay, so right now we can see that 191 clicks have happened over the time from 21st to 17th January, 21 December to 17th January. The link has been reopened 7 times. The first time it was opened, it was about 4 times, and total number of app installs using this link has been 4 times and 191 clicks. So mostly this app has been redirected from the website to the application, and in some cases there were 4 installs in it that when the app was actually not installed. So something like that. Now finally moving on to the last part, ad mob. Ad mob is basically for advertising, allowing your app to advertise different users. What I mean is that some party is interested in advertising their product on your application so that you will get some bit of revenue. Since we do not have control over this project, we cannot see that. Now moving on to the final thing, that is extensions that we talked about. For example, resizing all the images. Okay, again we do not have permission about that, but as we talked in the last project video, it was about doing something, adding some operation or middleware in between our other features. So for example, whenever a database is changing, database value is changing, we are sending an email, we are resizing all the images that we are receiving from the Firebase storage through the Firebase API, something like that. So I hope you get a clear idea of all these features. I know that some of them were not available here. We will create them in a new project and then we will explore them further so that you get an idea of all the features and services that we have talked about so far. I know the video has been quite a bit long, but it was in demand with the number of features that we have. So I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please drop a like, subscribe to the channel to show your support. And if you want more and more notifications about videos like this, then please hit the bell icon. I would be very grateful if you could share it with your friends who are having a passion for learning new technologies. And with that, I would rest my video, and we will hopefully see you in the next video. Thank you for your time. Sayonara. Code Panthers out.